Okay, I have to explain. How did it go from the last clip being dirt and dead grass and an unfinished deck to being just like this? Hey guys, welcome back to Chasing the Woodsman for day 2, or I really should say part 2 of that playground build, the deck or the platform I'm building around my kids' playground for the rock wall and for the slide. So I said in the last video that I still needed to mill a couple 1x6s, 1x8s, 1x10s, whatever I could get out of the log stacks that are around me. So in those stacks, I was able to snag one log. I think I'll get a bunch of 1x6s out of it, and then I'll stick another log and just keep going until I have enough wood to deck that platform. So with that, let's get started. To kind of take a break from that, I wanted to get out here and start laying some planks down, some boards down. So what I have my boards just set out just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing. I'm gonna actually start on this corner. So I'm gonna start making my cuts and working my way across, and I'll end on the far end over here. The boards are gonna be set up and sandwiched tight to each other with one screw on one side. So as the boards start to dry, I will eventually get that gap between the boards that you want when it comes to decking. And then maybe in about a month or so, I'll go through and I'll sink in a second screw. And when we get to that point, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But this is where we're at. These are the boards I have done. I'm gonna get these ones laid out, and then I'll go clean the machine and mill some more. Where I left off from the last video, I had mentioned that I was gonna take and cut these logs off, remove the slide, cut the logs off over on the rock wall. So that's what I did. I didn't capture it on camera, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed from our part 1 video to now today being our part 2 video. So this morning, before I went up and I milled, I was able to cut level the logs, these 4 logs going across here, so I can lay my planks down. I have them sitting here just kind of give you an idea what that'll look like. Obviously it'll be finished nice, but the slide will connect directly to these planks. And if we walk over here, I did the same thing for these 5 logs here. So I was able to cut those flush with the framework, allowing me to run my planks over the top of this. This gives a much more smooth transition for the kids to run up the rock wall and hit the planks. Eventually, I'll take and order some pipe railing that comes down right here for the kids to grab onto, along with some rails, some pipe rails on both sides of the slide. Also kind of give that playground look. That's my goal here. We live way out. We can't always go to the park and play in the playground, so I wanted to bring the playground to my kids. I wanted something more natural looking, hence why I have a sand pit that's surrounded by river rock. I have a rock wall coming up around a log fort type structure, and then a green slide with ramps and decks and planks and everything like that. So I'm keeping it fun for the kids, but I'm also making it that naturescape. If you guys are considering doing a playground for your kids, do some research. It's called Naturescape. There's a lot of beautiful ideas online from people much smarter and more artistic than I am. But let's get going on these planks. So I am working myself along this distance. I don't want to go any further than this because as I make my final cuts, my measurements, it's going to change where each board lays at each time. So I have that first stack, what I milled this morning, done and laid out just about. So I came back to the very beginning and I'm gonna work board by board going this direction along the deck. So what I have done so far is, number one, I went through and I planed these three. I was just gonna leave this all rough cut. It's a playground deck. I can't seem to do it. So I wanted something a little bit smoother, a little bit more finished. So I took and I sent these three through the planer. I'm gonna send all the boards through the planer. Along with that, I got my measurement on the back side of this board to make sure I'm square because my framing is square. I made sure to make it level and square. With that, I'm using this edge finding tool, this shape tool. Now when you do this, when you use one of these, they're pretty self-explanatory, but I want to show you how to get a little bit more precise measurement. When you go in and you use one of these, make sure you choose an edge. My board is a true 6 inches. This is not 6 inches. I'm gonna choose one side. So with that, I chose this edge. I'm gonna match it up with this spike, this rod right here. I'm gonna lay it down, matching those up, and I'm gonna push that in there. That's gonna give me that measurement. Now with that, I can pull this board out and I can lay that back down and get a pencil measurement where then I go in and I make my final cut. That's how you kind of start and you get more of a precise cut when you're doing each board like this. The reason I'm doing that is I want to make sure there's no little nooks and crannies for little fingers to get stuck. Along with bug habitat and anything else, it just looks better when it's finished up tight to these logs. Are these logs going to move? Yeah, these logs are going to move. Are these boards going to move? Yes, these boards are going to move.
Look what Grizzly has.
Good boy, Grizz. Yeah, he did get a squirrel.
What kind of squirrel?
Ground squirrel, huh? Yeah. Well, when you have mountain dogs, you bring back mountain things.
He looks pretty proud of himself.
He does look proud of himself.
Drop it.
Sort of an unwelcome interruption, but that's life.
This is life.
Yeah.
We know Johnny come lately.
Daddy, can you make
Well, that's his prize. He's pretty proud of it right now. We're not going to let him eat it, but we'll let him keep his prize for a little bit, okay?
Wait. He kind of high.
Don't step on Dice's tool, please.
Okay.
Well, that's what he worked hard for. He's a hunting dog, and he lives on a mountain, and that's what he got.
He's a mountain dog.
He's a mountain dog.
Daddy, why do you want to let Grizzly eat it?
Well, because there's diseases in it, and it might give him some worms. So we're not going to let him eat that, okay?
Fool me once.
Only once.
All right, well.
I marked each board with just a basic number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going across here. As you plane, you have to make sure you put that number in a new place. So I wanted to get a 7/8 thickness. Ideally 1 inch. I should have milled these a little bit thicker, about 1.125 inches. That would have given me to where I could have room to plane and joint them down. I didn't think about it. I was just gonna leave it rough, but this is where we're at. So when you go through and you joint each side, make sure you transfer your number, your mark to the edge of the board. All right, it's important to remember to make sure you get this board squared out, otherwise the rest of them will not be. I went through, my framework is already squared. I'm at 1.5 inches on that side, 1.5 inches on that side. So what I'm gonna do, lift this board up. Okay, what that allows is as this thing dries, I'm not going to be separating the board, causing a crack to run down the middle at its weakest point, the heartwood. Hopefully I don't have too much heartwood, but it's still the center of where that log would be. So it would cause a crack run down this. So in about a month or so, I'll come back and I'll sink another one here once I get some of that shrinkage to happen. Another method guys will do is I'll just stick one in the middle. So if they're doing some kind of siding on a shop or a shed, they'll just run one screw through the middle of it. That allows some shrinking to take place elsewhere. Another good option, because you will see my screw head, that's why I'm choosing one side or the other. I think on the siding, ideally I would stick a screw right down the middle of it. And there you have it. From here I need to pencil out my end grain here for where I need to cut and sand. When marking your measurements or your start and stop point for getting around these logs, so when I get my log measurement here, okay, I need to have a start and a stop point for where I can get this point, this measurement. Otherwise, I'm just in guessing land. So I start off by getting up here. It doesn't have to be perfect. A square would be best, but I just take my tape measure and I add my mark in here. And I come over here and I do the same thing, add my mark. Then from that point I can take this and I can wrap it around, and from point to point that gives me roughly where this is supposed to go. All right, and just like that, it matches up. Hey guys, back out here day 2 for this playground deck or platform project. This morning I was able to mill out a couple more logs, get enough boards to finish this thing out. However, this thing is kicking my butt. I haven't showed you thus far because it's been a lot of back and forth on getting double cuts or double rounded edges done in each board. So not only do I have to worry about getting the first log done, but I have 2 logs and maybe even 3 logs to contend with. So I'm working with the side to side concave, the depth concave. And so in fear of wasting boards on missed cuts and everything, I brought pencil and paper out here and I've been tracing. Don't let me fool you, this is my 4th piece of paper I've gone through. I'm keeping loggers employed. With that, I'm about ready to cut, I think, my final piece of paper. So we're gonna see here. It's a great way to save your cuts on your boards, especially if you're buying boards for a project like this. Take and cut up a piece of cardboard or paper. Save yourself the headache and worry of wasting wood. So I believe the rest of this project is going to take me a little while because I got to do this for each one. My shape finder isn't big enough to do this for me, so I need to do it with a piece of paper. And like that, I have my measurement. I think I'll take it over a little bit more on this. I know you guys probably can't see that, but that's the shape I need to do. And if this is my board, for example, I need to line this up here on my edge, this down here on my lower edge, and this is the shape I have to cut out of this board to get this wrapped around these logs. So I will trace this on here, and then after that I'll take my cut, stick it on there, and then I'll probably shave off quite a bit more just to allow some expansion in the logs in the winter time between seasons, winter and summer, to allow some of that. But this saved me a ton of time just being able to trace it. Well guys, we did it. 4 pieces of paper and 1 board, and we got the shape that we needed. Pretty darn close. I just had to take a little bit of meat off on this section of the log, but I'm pretty happy with that. It fits nice. Now I can move on to getting the next board traced out and butted up against there and continue on. So I'm actually going to take and get these 2 planed down and screwed into place, and then move on to my next 2, and then keep going until I run out of daylight. I'll bring the camera over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm still working off my pencil marks here and here. This is where the board's gonna come across here. I haven't joined these yet, so it's gonna be moved over slight, but not very much. I'm not joining them very much. But this allows me to come across this point, and it tells me that this board, this corner is gonna end right here in the log. This corner is going to end on that part of the log. Gives me two points to start with the piece of paper and work from there. It's a little bit tedious work, but it's worth it to make something look nice. Well, it seems to be working so far. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to take a little bit of meat off from this point. Not that much, but I don't know when I get in there. Take that about, and from this point where this crack is, and take a little bit more meat off this, cut some out there and cut some out there, and we'll have this one done. In that rectangle, I'm finding my center point, so that way I can build off of that point. I have these boards laid out to kind of give me a rough estimate on how far I want to have these stick out, because then I will do a straight cut. Cut that and see where we're at. You happy with that? Let's take a little bit off between those 2 points. A little bit off the back. All right, so I'll take and send these 4 boards through the joiner, through the planer, and I'll get them screwed down. I'll go ahead and trace my line across this section and get this thing screwed back on so they can keep playing. All right, guys, you might know something a little bit different. All of a sudden it's done, kind of. Over the busyness of the last couple of weeks, I just haven't been able to just grab and film through just trying to get sawed in real quick before it burned up in the pallet. I've just been busting this thing out, an hour here, an hour there, and I haven't been very diligent about bringing you along in the journey. So from the last clip of me working on this deck behind me with no green grass in the background to now having green grass. So if you see behind me, I went ahead and finished this thing out and I oiled it. And then as well as I, through a deal with a friend of mine, was able to get a couple pallets of sod. In that though, if you see, one of those pallets got too hot and it burned up the center. And so I have quite a few dead patches. Doesn't look too nice. Also, this section behind me, I still need more sod, as well as going down where the driveway will be with more sod there. Well, luckily, my buddy was able to get me a couple more pallets of sod, and so that way I can replace these and then finish things out. And so with that, let's take a look. Rule of thumb is that you always try to border first and then fill in at an opposite direction in the rest of the yard. So that's what you see me doing, is I'm trying to form a border first, and then I'll run the rest of my yard across. And of course, lay as you would do bricks, meaning none of my cross lines match up. Everything is staggered. In case you're wondering, my goal is to get this section filled first, move up and do along the wall, between the wall and the driveway, and then come in and fill in with the rest for however much I have left. Sometimes it's just so satisfying when you have a scrap piece that fits absolutely perfect to where you need it. And there you go. So that gives me about, oh, I don't know, a little over a third of my 2 pallets that I have. I'm actually gonna make my way along the wall up here between the wall and the driveway. I really wanna get that done and then replace my patches before I do anything else over here. I can always throw seed out on the outside of the yard, but I wanna get the main section of the yard all done up. So that's what I'm gonna move on to next. You might be wondering why I'm not just ripping all this out and starting fresh. Sod's expensive. Yes, I did get a screaming deal from a buddy of mine that made it even possible to sod. Sod was never even in my mind because it was just kind of up here in price. However, because I got it at a great deal, I'm able to sod this. That being said, I want to be wise about where I use my pieces. I'm running out pretty quick, and so I'm going to replace these big ones and then use my scraps and kind of patchwork around to get as much of this replaced as I can. The other stuff that I can't, I'll dig up, put fresh soil in there, seed it, and to be done with it. Now, it's not always ideal using little tiny pieces because they tend to dry out really fast and die. So it's kind of a gamble doing what I'm gonna do, but I'm also trying to stretch out as much as I can, and I'll keep this thing just watered. I covered the main features or structure in the last video between the wood retaining wall, the rock steps allowing the kids to climb up to their deck, the slide, the ramp on the far side, as well as the sand pit. It's really made it nice for our kids to have sand in here for them to come and play, to dig in. The sod laid around it so that we can come out here and enjoy the space, not just sit on weeds and dirt. So with that, it's really provided a playground away from the playground. We don't have to load up in the car and go somewhere else, and we can just have it here, allowing play dates and everything else to take place. And so with that, you can see that just having a little bit of sod, a little bit of green grass really changed the atmosphere, changed the way it is for our kids. With that, I was able to take and purchase some handrails, so it's a little bit safer for the kids as they climb up and down. Some railings for the slide to keep them from falling around the edge. Sure, kids can always fall, but they're smart enough that they have really taken to those and figured out how it all works. With that,
Watch out, I'm gonna slide.
maybe as simple as it might be, but a ramp The kids love the ramp. Between running up it or running down, it just provides that quick and easy way for them to go down the slide and then come zipping around here just like that. Let's take a look at this deck. I took and finished out these boards. I got some oil on it. With that, I need to put another coat on. Between the rain that we've been getting and the sprinklers that have been hitting it, it's kind of faded that oil out a little bit. It's always a good idea if you're oiling a deck to do it a couple times. One coat usually isn't quite enough. I always like to put some time in between my coats, meaning a couple weeks even, to where I can lay that coat down, see how it soaks it up, see what the wood is going to do, because every board is different, every tree is different. And then after a couple weeks, I put on a new coat of oil. So with that, here we have it. Here's the playground, all done for the kids to play in. And of course, we'll try and encompass the grass even more as it goes around, but for right now, this is perfect for what our kids need. Thanks for tuning in to Chasing the Woodsman. Give me a like and a subscribe. Be blessed in all you do. We'll see you next time.